Welcome to the Not Badger for the week ending November 12th, 2016. Here, thanks to our privileged straight cis men who are trying to work off the guilt from their crimes of historical and felony oppression, we have compiled a collection of funny, interesting, and hopefully useful clips from our most watched shows. Enjoy the spoils of their hard work. In Polecat Cast number 80, we talk about the news of the week, including the Melbourne Red Pill event, the Rolling Stone legal case, and exposing kids to porn to teach them gender equality.
Kind of funny, listening to the links that we have had to go to get people the opportunity to see a movie that, among the other things it talks about how far feminists have gone in the past to keep the men's rights message from getting out. And it is all because of feminist protest and feminist opposition. It's been feminists right down the line that have opposed people being able to see this movie, that have opposed men's activism in public, that have opposed men having the right to discuss men's issues without feminist control of that discussion, right down the line. And then they want to sit around and tell us that they don't hate men. Yeah. I'm sorry, but the more they do this, actually I'm not sorry, fuck you feminists, the more you guys do this, the more you do this, the more you convince us that, yeah, feminism is about hating men. It's the primary factor. It's the primary characteristic of feminism, that you want control over human rights issues so that you can reserve human rights considerations for women and girls to the exclusion of men and boys.
I had a big awakening when I started researching domestic violence, and because I was wondering, what is that all these different feminist groups that all disagree with each other, but they all have one common theme, I thought about, is it that, well, it's clearly that they don't want equality, because if they did that, they would want to help men who are victims of domestic violence. And then I thought, is it that they want to help women? Well, I says, well, if they were, then they would point out that lesbian couples have the highest rates of domestic violence, and they would try to help those women. And it is really it is just about hurting men. That's the primary basis of all feminism.
Yeah, and that's, they base everything they do on that, and then they capitalize on it, and they use it to launch themselves into higher levels of political power and to stir shit with the public, and so on, to build themselves a whole network of professions that the base for those professions is demonizing men and using a victim narrative, about women to make money. That's really all they do. And then the minute the men and boys want to talk about, hey, these things are happening to men and boys, and these remedies could be applied so that these things would stop happening, and then men and boys would not be oppressed. Men and boys would not be discriminated against. Feminists go apeshit. They get pissed off. They protest. They scream and yell and throw childish little temper tantrums. And they call it misogyny when you have compassion for men and boys.
It's interesting. I was expecting more men's rights activists there. Most of the people there seemed to be people who were interested in free speech. They donated and they came along because they don't like censorship. And so we got a whole bunch of blue pillars who got to see the red pill.
Nice.
Right. That was excellent. I was really pleased with that. I did a little shill for my site and for another site called Equal, which is coming up soon, and said if anyone wants to help out with the final beta test before it goes live, come and talk to us. And a couple of dozen people came up afterwards and shook hands and signed up, and it was really positive. It was excellent. The feminists did us an incredible favor by protesting the film. That was just magnificent. We got more than twice the number. We got stories in every newspaper all across Australia, and even a couple of stories in London newspapers. It was just magnificent. We could not have gotten better publicity. So, feminists, if you're listening, absolute thanks. That was really great. Cheers.
It was the complete opposite, not from what I was expecting, from what the feminazis would have referred to as, you're in a room full of men and they're all misogynist. And it's like, actually, they were all gentlemen. In the old classic term of they showed me so much respect. So, I had no controversy at all. I kind of loved it. But I was looking forward to the controversy on the other hand because we were already in pump for it. Like, come on, bring it on.
Yeah.
And it wasn't there.
It is legislated in the U.S. You are not allowed to do what the Rolling Stone did without consequences, and they are facing consequences. I would be very hesitant to add anything on top of that would give the government the power to come in and say, you can't say that because we deem it untrue. Because you have this problem where, well, I mean, like you've seen, with the Hillary Clinton campaign, the degree of corruption and media collusion that has come out. It's very dangerous to give a government entity the power to say, we deem that unsayable. You can't say that. If somebody's been wronged and they've had damages that they can come forward and prove, then they can apply those consequences. And I think it's a lot better to leave it that way. And it still creates an incentive for a publication to do better than the Rolling Stone did. And I'll bet you that going forward, the Rolling Stone is going to be a bit more cautious than they were before.
The freedom of speech defense, which is often brought up by the journalists, I don't think that's applicable. I think that's just them, trying to. That's a weak defense. It's just not. It's not very good, because when you are inaccurate, when you're lying, when you're trying to get the scoop, so you cut corners, you rush, because you're trying to make that money, and you fuck up, then you should be called on it. Period.
There's been a lot of discussion about various aspects of this, and it's not to disparage the effect that it has on real rape victims, but the real victims here are the people who were libeled. That is the school, that is the dean, and that's the guys at the frat that were accused of something that they didn't do. And I'm sure that they've been through hell over this, and there are still people, like, you can prove conclusively that this did not happen, and there are still people who are using it as an example of rape culture and disparaging these people who have done nothing wrong at all. All they were was a target, and yet they're the ones that get criticized the most. And this is actually a huge thing. It has a huge effect on a person's life when he or she faces a false accusation. And the bigger the accusation, the bigger that effect is. It's not just a matter of whether they face legal repercussions or social repercussions. There are psychological things that happen when you get accused of being a monster. When you get accused of doing something absolutely terrible, because they weren't just accused of, like the stories that have come out with the guys that have been accused of not stopping when somebody passed out, which is shitty and stupid. And I'm not going to say that it's not rape to take advantage of somebody that has passed out, because it is, but they were accused of active, malicious, willful violence that was brutal and damaging. They were accused of throwing a woman down on broken glass and raping her on broken glass. And you got to understand, this is not just something that you go through and it doesn't have any impact on you. There's like lifelong. It was a guy that I saw through the 7 years in hell case. And the case has been over for quite a while, and he's still dealing with symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder from this. And he probably will for years to come. It's changed his perception of the people around him. It's changed his perception of women. It's changed his perception of the police and the court system. It's made going out and doing things in the world outside of his house different for him, probably for the rest of his life. So it's not just a minor thing that this happened. It's not that, like I said, it's not that I'm downplaying the idea that people won't believe real victims, which really, I don't think this affects that, because if you can prove something happened, you can prove it happened. You're going to be believed in court if you can prove something happened. But it's very, very, deplorable that a publication would do this. I can't think of a better word to describe it. That is the basis for feminist research styles in government feminist research. Feminist-led government research. That's what Mary Koss did when she decided to come up with that survey method where they ask questions, but they don't tell you what they're really asking about, and then they define your answers differently than maybe you would. And they use vague wording, and instead of saying, against your will, they say when you didn't want to, which could mean anything from when you didn't plan to, but you changed your mind, to when it wasn't your idea, it was the other person's idea, to like, I go to the doctor when I don't want to, but I want the treatment I'm going to get from the doctor, so I trade the time I don't want to spend to get that treatment, and I spend money I don't want to spend to get that treatment. And there are quid pro quo things that happen in the workplace sometimes, and it's, a lot of women don't like having this admitted, but there are women that use their tits and ass to get ahead in the workplace, not because they like doing that, but because it's effective, and it's terrible. But it doesn't make them victims if they do that on purpose, even if that's not the way they wanted to get the job. The official entities, the same entities that are wanting to expose 5-year-old children to porn, will take your children out of your home or advocate taking your children out of your home if they get on your computer without your permission at that age and find porn on the internet. Exposure to porn is one of the things that can be used by child protective services in numerous countries to take your children out of the home. They don't give the parents a chance to explain to the child what the child found and why it's not something for the child to worry about right now, and that you don't have to think about that, or you don't have to do anything with that. That's grown-up stuff or anything like that. They don't have a chance to put this into context of fiction versus what people do together in real life, or anything like that. Nope, they just look at taking kids out of the home. They consider it child sexual abuse if your child gets exposed to porn in your home, but they want to expose your child to porn in school. And this is actually something that Lucian Valzen predicted and discussed. He's got a couple of videos up on his channel discussing this, and he talked about it at ICMI 16 in London. So one thing that I would recommend doing, go on YouTube and look up Lucian Valzen ICMI 16 London and listen to what he has to say about it, and find his channel. It's Freedom, I can't remember see if it comes up if Freedom Alternative is the name of his channel on YouTube. And take a look at some of the things that he's had to say about this and other world government activities. He's actually very he's up on a lot of things because he's fairly well traveled, got a lot of life experience that has led him to understand things that a lot of Americans, knowledge that a lot of Americans have been deprived of, or we've been lazy about acquiring. He has it. So I definitely, he's one of the most underviewed channels on YouTube. There are a lot more people should be watching his stuff. If there was an epidemic, and I wouldn't call it that really, but if this was happening a lot, where kids were just obsessed with porn and sex, there would be a different alternative way to deal with that than exposing kids that hadn't been exposed to it. And this is something that should be approached more in terms of wise use of your computer and teaching, society, just like there's been a distinct effort at educating adults. Keep poisonous things where your toddler can't reach them, put locks on your cupboards so your kid can't drink the bleach, and we have locks now on your television that you can keep your child from accessing certain channels without your permission unless they're a little hacker. But there's no reason why that they would have to do this. This is, even if what they were trying to prevent was happening the way that they're claiming it happens, this would not be the appropriate, it's not the first approach that you should take.
Isn't this some shit that parents should be doing with their children? Not showing them porn
Absolutely.
at 5, but they should be involved with their kids, when it comes to issues of intimacy and if they have crushes and because when I was 5, I had my first crush. I didn't understand it. Like I didn't really understand sexuality or anything, but I think that you have you grow attracted to someone, and you're like, oh, I want to be around that person more, and then there was like, oh, I really want to kiss that person, like that's the pinnacle, like, oh my god, I've like achieved fucking absolution if I just kiss this girl on the lips, no less. And so but yeah, I mean, usually that's something that you as a child you should be communicating with your parents, because as Kit says, children develop at different rates when it comes to their things like their sexuality and stuff, and so a parent knows that better than like some school or some teacher that is essentially trying to put her, again, she's putting activism where it does not belong, which is education. And this has been, obviously this is not new, because academia is basically activismemia now. It doesn't even do education. It's just it's just activism.
There's even another wrinkle too.
Yeah,
there's another wrinkle here too. There's so much talk over the last couple of years about misgendering and heteronormativeness and this and all this other kind of horse shit, right? Mm-hmm. And if something like this happened, there's going to be some kind of flaky motherfucker parent out there that's going to be like, well, they weren't showing my kid homosexual porn, and I'm going to sue them now.
They should see that. Like, they should see some tranny porn.
I'm fucking saying,
that's so cis-normative.
I'm joking about this?
No.
Yeah, I'm joking about this, but it's going to happen, because every day we make these jokes, and the next day we're proven right because it fucking happens.
Mm-hmm. The juxtaposition of this with recent revelations about Hillary Clinton's email and DNC emails and Podesta's emails and everything, and the degree of outrage that an email joke that went around among a set of athletes on a team versus the shit that came out of the DNC and the shit that came out of Hillary Clinton and the shit that came out of Podesta, and the people that supported them were like, well, you Russians, and didn't give a rat's ass about, like, well, that's actually one of the least of the things came out.
I know.
Like,
Definitely worth
Hillary Clinton, well, and her Goldman Sachs speeches, like, she said to these rich people, ha ha ha, I say one thing to you guys and something else to all the poor people, and they buy it, ha! And that comes out, and people don't have the degree of outrage that they have. Oh, this is an email joke. It's an email joke. And these guys got something huge taken away because they were joking about women. And and we say that women are the ones oppressed in society. I'll bet you if it was the reverse and this came out about guys and it was women that had been passing it around and somebody bitched about it, be like, loosen up, women's sexuality isn't dirty, women are allowed to be sexual, quit slut shaming these girls. But no, because it's men who were looking at women and who were fantasizing about women and joking around and talking, that's bad, and their sexuality is perceived as dirty. And they got something huge taken away from them that they only get one chance to go for. I was wrong. These women have been victimized. Somebody taught them to be weak. Mm-hmm. I mean, somebody taught them to be unable to deal with this on a adult level. It's like for them to express that, like they literally got hurt by something harmless. They've actually adopted pain that they didn't need to experience because they've been taught to treat something that doesn't cause them any damage as if it's damaging.
Were the women on the sports team actually the ones to complain, or did someone complain for them?
It sounds like somebody got a hold of this email and made it public, and demonized it, and then the girls responded the way that they've been taught is appropriate to respond to this.
Okay.
By the way, this is Harvard, one of the Ivy League schools, like one of the most prestigious schools in the United States.
Man, I hope none of those women are studying things like law and medicine or any other highly competitive field where they're going to have to go someplace and strive to reach the top of their professional area and compete with people that are going to say things they don't like. Mm-hmm. Because if they're taught that they don't have to handle that when it's somebody saying stuff that's not even really important in school. Because it's not like these guys joke about stuff like this, but if these girls are shocked, that means these guys never treated them in such a way as to make the girls think that they had this stuff on their mind.
You're gonna
which
love
means
this.
It was a momentary stinking joke.
It's about the election. It's about the election because in the Harvard Crimson they say locker room talk is not an excuse because this is not limited to athletic teams. The whole world is a locker room. Yet in it we feel blessed to know many men who do not and would never participate in this behavior out of respect for women. To them we are grateful. Blah, 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 blah. Note at the top.
They're having to pay the price for this.
And note at the top here it says stronger together at the top of the Harvard Crimson, which is the Hillary slogan. So this is political. And then the Guardian, they swept in and they were like, oh shit, we can use this too, and we can make the same argument, and we can talk about rape culture. I'm surprised that Trump's name doesn't come up in this article. But I know that that's what the allusion is for, because while they would probably have talked about this for rape culture reasons anyway, see, Mattress Girl and all this other shit that came before it, I think it's supercharged at this point. And so it's got more potential for clicks, which is really what the Guardian gives a shit about.
Well, Brian, give them some time. I'm sure they'll do it. I'm sure they will do it. I mean, like you said, this is the Guardian. This is their MO. Mm-hmm. So it's just a matter of time. Just give them a day. Give them 2 days.
Well,
it's like a weekend.
The funny thing about this is every time they do this, every time they make a big deal about something like this, and they talk about this consequence was faced and everybody's all outraged over this terrible, terrible behavior, they prove, once again, that we do not live in a rape culture. We do not live in a culture of tolerance for sexual violence against women. We live in a culture where discussing sexual violence against women or calling something that isn't sexual violence against women elicits so much outrage from people for or on behalf of the women in question that there's always a big hullabaloo. And it's very clear that there is no tolerance, even for the implication of sexual violence against women. So we don't live in a rape culture. We live in a culture where there is no tolerance for even... In fact, we live in a culture where there is no tolerance even for normal male sexuality, much less rape.
Now for the Doge and Bunny Show number 1, where Bunny Blackwell and I look at Liana K's video about how gaming culture can improve for the women's. A little bit of a spoiler here. She made a video where she talks about what feminist terms mean to her, and she goes into some detail in each one. And the one that got my interest the most was what feminism means to her. And it is exactly that. It is, first, it presumes a history of oppression. It presumes that even though there may be less oppression of women in the West, that there are other areas where there definitely for sure is. And it applies that to a model that says, because of this historical or geological oppression that is going on in all different parts of the world for different reasons and under different circumstances and has in the past, okay, then therefore, in order to prevent us falling back into that hole, we have to examine all other cultures in the present or that may occur in the future through the lens of how is it affecting women. And by doing that, you're already starting from a bad place. Now, of course, she's probably going to see this and flip out and say that's not what she said. I would say, guys, look at the video yourself, make your own conclusions. That's what I took away from it, okay? Yeah. That's what I took away from it.
Stop associating the gamer identity with inherent privilege. A gamer isn't a white man. A gamer is someone who loves games. Associating the gamer identity with men, others women.
All right, so...
Keep in mind for those watching that she did exactly that earlier in this video. Associated it specifically with men and talked about how we could make gaming better for women, and this is how, and talked about men being the primary consumers of games, but women were the primary users of household money. So, I don't know. I don't think you can have it both ways here. But
yeah. By the way, number one, stop associating the gamer identity with inherent privilege. So you are working from the assumption that people who are associating gamer identity with privilege are really associating the gamer identity with men, which is associated with privilege. Mm-hmm. And when people, and this is the privilege argument that I get a lot from social justice warriors and feminists and so on, is that recognizing that someone is privileged it's not a mark against them. It's not a bad thing. However, they're also blamed for everything. They're typically othered for it. And most importantly, and this is something that you can see if you look at the actions of groups like Black Lives Matter and radical feminists and like LGBTQ activists, not the people, but the activists that tend to get really crazy, they use the privilege argument as a means to attack the people that they consider to be privileged. So it is divisive, no matter how you slice it, because when you have a bunch of angry people who have been told they are victims of another group because the other group, by and large, seems to be doing better, and then you say the reason why the other group is doing better is because they are privileged and your group is not privileged, then you are giving them the fuel to hate the other group. It's class warfare, no matter how you slice it. And then what Liana K does is she says this others women. So somehow this paradigm, which is allowing people to hate men because they happen to be the primary consumers of games, and because they are men, they are privileged, which might have something to do why games are made for them. I don't know. I know that it's likely the market. This somehow is more damaging to women than it is to men. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about the feminist lens, which only looks at how women are affected in every single circumstance. And it asks the question, how do women have it worse in this scenario?
And I said this in the last video too. She is very, very good at this. You want to believe her. You want to believe she is authentic and genuine in what she's saying. And maybe she is, maybe she isn't. Again, as I said in the last video, I can't say for sure what her motivations are. And frankly, they're irrelevant to me. What is relevant to me is putting a yellow triangle with an exclamation mark on it going, when people are telling you to use really nice language as a way of getting people to see your point of view, then that means it is an emotional appeal. And it is not an argument appeal. If she would just present her arguments without all of this emotional wingle-wangling, then I would respect her more. But this also, and for anyone who's had arguments like this on the interwebs, this also bleeds into the, well, I've been so nice to you, why don't you see my point of view?
Yeah.
And you've used all this harsh language, so that immediately makes you wrong. For me, I would rather have somebody call me a fucking dog-faced cunt who was wrong in every way, and mean it, and have arguments supporting that, than someone who used really flattering, nice language to me just as a means to make me more receptive to an argument that if I really thought about, I wouldn't agree with.
Stop stereotyping. Sweeping
you first.
Video games are naturally a male hobby. Deny people their individuality. Recognize that the reasons people make life-defining choices are complicated. So drop the jargon like self-selection and punching up.
All right.
And privilege.
Yeah, and privilege. So that sounds like, because she mentioned punching up, and that's a uniquely feminist SJW term. So I don't know. That sounds like she's directing it at, like, say, the gaming press for saying this is an inherently male hobby, which I don't disagree with. So I don't have a problem with that. Also recognize that if you're going to say stop using politicized jargon, then you probably also want to make sure that you don't use politicized jargon. If that's what your aim is, like, don't say you guys stop doing that, but I'm going to keep doing that over here, you know?
Oh, I also think it's rich saying stop using politicized jargon when she may not use jargon, but she certainly gets in the reminders of, look at how hard it is for women to get into positions of power. It may not be jargon, but I certainly consider that politicized. So she's doing it herself again. And this is what I'm saying about the pissing on my leg and telling me it's raining. Don't tell other people to stop doing exactly what you are doing. Just be straight with what you want to see happen and own it.
No more trophy victims. Let women talk. Don't talk for us.
You first again.
Yeah.
Seriously, stop.
No more, trophy victims.
She don't talk for me.
Makes the trolling worse, and men talking to men about sexism undermines the process of normalizing opinions that come from women.
Whoa.
Okay, let me go back a little bit. That was like, somehow this became about men. So I'm trying to figure out how. Like, this is the thing about, when you're establishing these rules, do you, like, work from a principle, and a principle that you can apply universally, and then say, okay, from this principle we can extract this. This is the way it should be. But the moment you start adding these little, like, tweaks, where you say women are trophy victims, which is another way of somehow making women victims when you have white knights and feminists on one side that think that they're defending women, and they're using that women worsting narrative to attack regular people, not even anti-feminist types, not even real misogynists, just regular folks that are going about their everyday business, whether they are male or female. Then you can't take the women that those people are using and make them into victims. You have to look at it in a way that, because they're using victims to victimize other people. Like,
yeah, this is way off the rails for me here. Seriously. Yeah. Let women talk, don't talk for us. You first, because you don't talk for me. I can talk for myself. So why the fuck are you making a video on telling people 10 ways to make gaming culture better for women? So you're talking for women, right? But it's okay when you do it, somehow. Okay, number 2, can make trolling worse. We need to normalize opinions coming from women. They're already fucking normal. You can't fucking shut women up. It's nothing but female opinions. Are you kidding me? Women talk way more.
And it's not really, I don't think it's constructed to dismiss oppositional voices as trolling. Now, I'm not saying that she's saying that about all of them, but I think that when you get into the territory of saying, well, there's just trolling and it's just bad in general, so we should ignore it, then you're potentially missing out on really good arguments and discussions because you could easily dismiss it as trolling. So,
okay, yeah. But here you have to normalize opinions coming from women. But trolling is apparently bad. What if the trolling is coming from a woman's opinion? What do? Head explode. That's a woman's opinion. Yeah. So women's opinion trolling should be normal, right? Because it's normalized. Or isn't it? Or is everybody equally fucked and we should all just roll with it and not gender specify?
Focus on the accomplishments and passions of women in gaming, not just the horror stories. There!
Oh, God.
That would be great if the accomplishments and passions of women in gaming got their own sci-fi stories. Oh, wait, they don't. And they don't get their Kotaku articles the same way. And, oh, wait, yeah. And this gets back to her premise. Okay, so we want to focus on the accomplishments of women. But Leanna K makes a video about how gaming should change to be better for women. So these two things do not really go together. Because if gaming is not living up to its potential with women, then that's what she is focusing on here. She is focusing on the insufficiencies of gaming as they pertain to women. But I don't see her focusing on the accomplishments and passions of women. In fact, earlier in the video, she made a point of pointing out how women are not being allowed to have accomplishments in gaming. So this is another one of those talking out of both sides of her mouth. Don't make a video pointing out that women are being held back from accomplishments in gaming and then say, you should be focusing on the accomplishments of women in gaming. Well, why are you? Why aren't you?
Whenever I hear that a woman says, as a woman in industry X,
yes,
that just drives me up the wall. Because I'm like, I don't care that you have a vagina and you happen to be doing this thing. Why aren't you celebrating the fact that you're doing this thing by itself? Just say that, And there are some women that have, and I'm really glad that they exist. But there are a lot of women that are like, as a woman in the X industry, and it's like, God damn it.
Well, I get that. No, and I get that in forensics. Oh, wow, you're a woman and you're dealing with all those dead bodies? Wow, you're so brave. And it makes me want to tear someone's throat out, honestly. Because I'm like, no, I'm no more or less brave than any other fucking person that does this. This is not a guy thing. Why are you making this into a guy thing? Because to me, it is just a thing. So
yeah, it's a thing. It's not a guy thing. It's not a girl thing. Stop saying that. It's a thing.
Because it drives me up the fucking wall.
Yes.
Or you're so strong. I also get, well, you're so strong for a woman. And it's always from women.
Yes.
And I'm like, what do you, I lift weights. If you lifted weights, you would be this strong too. That's all
Lifting weights makes you stronger. It's crazy.
Yeah. Weights. Do you even lift, bro? Weights make strong. There you go. Like, I'm not some special magical thing who's doing something that needs to have it fucking pointed out.
Yeah.
And I actually really hate that, because it's kind of like being patted on the head and told, that's so great that a woman can accomplish this. Good for you. Good for you. And I'm like, fuck off. I'm not doing anything a man hasn't done. I'm not doing anything my colleagues and peers don't do. The fact that I have tits doesn't mean it's special.
One of the reasons, going back again, that I wanted to do a Liana K video was because she has been considered a very reasonable voice in all of this. And I wanted to show, this is basically going back to, are radical feminists the only ones that we should be criticizing? Do moderates still, are they immune? And I say no, I don't think that they are, because the radicals and the moderates, and even a lot of normies that may not even identify as feminists, they work from the same perspective in many, if not all cases, and that is, how does this thing that I'm looking at and examining affect women? Because that determines how good it is or how bad it is. And so,
I think, yeah. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is perhaps an unpopular opinion on YouTube, but hey, that's all good. I am not thin-skinned, so come at me, brah. I think feminists like Liana K are far more dangerous and far worse than radical feminists. Because with radical feminists, they are so easy to disprove. So easy, you don't even need to think about it. But Liana K, again, it's the men's suicide matters, ... because of taxes. Because her first premise, she comes across so well. And even reasonable critical thinking people listen to what she say and they go, oh yeah, that sounds really reasonable. That sounds really good. And then you get to the punchline. But by that time, you're already feeling sympathetic, and you're already feeling inclined to believe her, and you're already feeling inclined to want to like her. So when she gets to the punchline of, yeah, but we still need to make gaming culture better for women, it doesn't hit you that way.
Moving on to Honey Badger Radio number 76, we look at America in the wake of the election, and Allison attempts to make the argument that a Trump win is not as much of a win against the left as we might think.
This ideological tribalism is based on the idea that people who disagree with you are subhuman. They are deviant, immoral, unacceptable, a scourge, all the things we used to think our tribal rivals were. And the less we get along, the more we set the stage for a heavy-handed mommy government who will step in, tell stepdad to beat us into compliance. The most Trump will do, in my opinion, is provide a temporary relief from the government stranglehold over the resource-producing classes of America and prevent war with Russia, which is significant. Incidentally, a stupid, unending war with an evenly matched superpower is another way to keep local ideological tribalism in check. Expect our boys and men to be sacrificed in the future because of our inability to discuss things rationally and accept questions to our axiomatic beliefs. This is not a victory, at least not a long-term one. This election lays bare how much work we need to do to oppose ideological tribalism that's going to tear us apart. Never before in U.S. history has a significant portion of the populace rioted against the result of an election and regarded the winners as subhuman scum, just because they disagree ideologically. Trump may be a victor of the working class, resource creators over the intelligentsia and the government-dependent and the media, but the regressive left has also seen its own victory. They now have a moderately sized army of cultists who want to see liberty burn rather than have to deal with sinners who disagree with them. This is how theocracies form, around a hard core of believers who refuse to regard unbelievers as human. And with every college classroom and K-12 school curricula devoted to gender studies and the ways boys are tools of Satan and girls helpless victims of boys, both of whom can only found their salvation in the Church of Feminism, that theocracy grows. Whatever happens, Trump's win does prove there's a significant group of people no longer listening to the media. But it also proves that there's a group of people listening too much.
You have to literally believe that a state wherein men do not hate women is some far distant utopian future, right? It's not the here and now. Your father's day, it's not your grandfather's day, it's not your great-grandfather's day. They all hated women and we all hate women. It's some utopian future brought to us by feminism, brought to us by a unilateral and complete annihilation of all traditional norms of culture, of society, of everything. Right?
Any possible control or lack of freedom or restraint on women's behavior.
I think where the monkey wrench comes in with humanity is that we have like a majority of us that's pretty well satisfied to enjoy life and have our families and have our friends and have our entertainment and so on. The ones that the elitists say give them their bread in circuses and they'll let you get away with anything. And then you have the elitists who want to control people and they want to be, they want to hoard resources. They want to be in charge and large, and they need that tribalism. They need that conflict. They don't need them to be in conflict. They need us to be in conflict because that makes us easier to control. And it's, this isn't a new idea. This is something that's been discussed before. KGB defector Yuri, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this guy's name right, Bezmenov, Yuri Bezmenov. He actually talked about this years ago. If you look up a video, and the video was put up in 2012, but it's a video of an old television program. Former KGB agent Yuri Bezmenov explains how to brainwash, I think, a nation was the rest of it, how to brainwash. I don't know, I've got this almost up on the screen here. And how to brainwash a nation, yeah, and in parentheses full length. If you look that up on YouTube and you watch, it's not a short video, it's an hour and 20 minutes long, but it is worth watching because he has predicted everything that is going on now. And what he had said back in 1983 was pretty much to do what the left has done. To create this degree of tribalism, all they had to do was tell us how much we all hated each other. And this, it didn't really take all that much work. What we had was one person telling one group, everybody else hates you, and you're oppressed, and you deserve reparations, and it's all their fault, and you should hate them for that. And it worked. The next group, same thing. The next group, same thing. Every ethnic group, every sexuality group, every identity. And identity politics, we were, after the civil rights movement, as a nation, we were starting to heal from that stuff. We were starting to grow, and we were starting to become stronger. And that probably scared the shit out of a lot of elitists.
When the CBC did a radio show, it's The Current, it's a very social justice-y, feminist-y radio show, and I'm listening to it, and they actually had a guy on there that they were interviewing who was totally against Trump, right? Absolutely could not stand Trump. Trump would be the worst thing for America, blah, 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 right? Spent the last 28 years being one of those guys in the silos 14 hours a day with the key, right? And the launch codes. Okay? That's what he's done for the last 28 years. And he's like, and this the topic of this radio program is Trump going to bring about a nuclear holocaust, right? Okay? And they're trying to work everybody up. And this guy, Trump, right? He's being interviewed and he's like, oh yeah, no, I think it's dangerous for him to have that kind of authority. I think it's dangerous for him to have his finger on the button. And they're like, okay, well, asked him, okay, so what, able to unilaterally make a decision to, launch a nuclear strike against some other country. And he said, well, no, he wouldn't. Like, there's all kinds of checks and balances there, and there's all kinds of safeguards there, and there's the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and, frankly, if he just decided that, like, the president of France pissed him off one day and he was going to nuke France because I don't know, the French president looked at Melania a little bit, sideways.
Because of all those viruses in your computer?
He would be relieved of duty in 2 seconds, confined to quarters under fucking guard, and somebody else would take control of the country. Like, there is no fucking way for the president of the United States, no matter who he is, to just decide, you know what, I'm pissed off at these people at the moment, I'm gonna launch nukes.
Yeah, there's no button.
Right?
The myth of the button. There's no button.
This isn't even a new thing.
From getting everybody all fucking worked up that Trump could just literally stab his fucking chunky finger on a fucking candy-colored button, right? And bring about the end of the fucking France. What I found most interesting about Trump and LGBT issues is that in his acceptance speech at the RNC, when he accepted his candidacy, he said, he essentially listed all of the different groups that he is with. He is with every, for every freaking parent who dreams for their child and every child that dreams for their future, I'm with you, right? For all of our LGBTQ citizens, I'm with you. And he got massive fucking cheers from the audience. And then he said, and it warms my heart, or something like that I got cheers for saying that, right?
Yeah.
From a Republican crowd, from a crowd of grassroots Republicans, not the establishment, but the actual, just the membership of the Republican Party, cheered him for saying that. Cheered him for saying he would protect the rights and the safety of LGBTQ Americans, right? And he got, this is not something that the Republican Party is ever going to be able to fully recover from. They're never going to be able to get back to Mike Huckabee and, the whole idea that the gays are like, ruining America and all of that. It's never going to go back. Right? He single-handedly shifted the entire Republican platform in that moment on LGBTQ rights because he essentially got the cheers from the grassroots when he said that. Right? And so this asshole, Chris Schleicher, he doesn't fucking know what the fuck he's talking about. This is a guy who is taking the Republican Party into an age of acceptance and tolerance of LGBTQ people.
What Chris Schleicher is responding to is not Trump's actual policies. And this is most of what these people are freaking out about, is not to do with Trump himself at all, but more so the straw man that the media created. And when I say the media, I don't just mean the news media. I'm talking about YouTube, I'm talking about academia, I'm talking about like these faux news like night shows like John Oliver and Trevor Noah and Jon Stewart and all these people and Samantha Bee that they've just churned out week after week after week, and then stand-up comedians, they use it in their material, and then YouTubers use it, and the fucking these like rags on the internet use it. So after a while, you just have this gigantic cacophony that's telling you what Trump stands for, what he is, and it doesn't actually reflect him at all. And you haven't like bothered to go and find anything else because to you it seems like this is the narrative everywhere. Now this Al Jazeera, fucking Huffington Post videos, whatever, ATTN, they're just pumping this out daily, just bombarding people, and they don't question it. So all of a sudden, you get this idea that he's somehow anti-LGBT, even though you mentioned that speech. I watched that today too. He was also referring, and I wonder how they process this shit. He was referring to also protecting LGBT people from radical Islamic terrorism. And he used the Orlando shooting as an example of what needs to be done. And they cheered for it, but I don't even know how these people would process that, because it's like you have to hold these two ideas in your head at the same time. Hence why he said, hug your LGBT friends and also your non-Christian friends. Because he's not talking about the Jews. The Jews are fine. He's probably talking specifically about Muslims and atheists. as soon as this happened, all right, the next fucking day, there are people on social media making claims that all of a sudden there's like these rampant white men with "Make America Great Again" hats running around causing havoc. And one woman wrote a post where, you know, some dude catcalled her on the street, and when she was like, "Oh my God, why'd you do that?" or whatever, he was like, "Hey, it's America. We can do whatever we want. Trump 2016." You know, it was like this like crazy story that I'll take things that never happened for 500, Alex.
Well, I would like to see some of this on actual like footage.
Yeah, no, they're not going to do that. Like, no one's done that yet. They've all just told these stories and said this is totally happened. And if you don't believe me, you're a fucking misogynist, because listen and believe. There was another woman who said that she was with her boyfriend and some dude grabbed her by the pussy, who was wearing a MAGA hat, and then like ran off because he said it's a free country and I can do that, or something like that. And then she
was like just flapping off down the street.
She was just walking with her boyfriend, but her photo. She's like this. I'm sorry. I'm gonna be really mean. She's a land whale. There's no way this happened. So
well, at least not grabbing by the pussy and flapping or running down the street with her.
How would you be able to find it?
You wouldn't be able to find it without a sack of flour.
Not to mention that most guys, if some guy came up and grabbed their girlfriend like that, would punch the person who did it.
Yeah, like
most guys would defend their girl. This is pretty much the standard. He wouldn't have been able to just go running down the street. He would have had her boyfriend on his back, beating the crap out of him.
No, the boyfriend was just gobsmacked. He didn't know what to do. There was no more of the story. There was no fight or anything. And then there was this Middle Eastern girl who claimed that Trump supporters attacked her because she was wearing her hijab, and they yanked it off, and they shouted racial expletives and took her wallet and left, and they were wearing Trump hats while they were doing it. It's this crazy shit. And wait, but later this was proved to be false, and she actually ended up confessing that she lied about it. So there are these fabricated bullshit things that are happening, and it's basically like why don't they have
video proof?
Well, because these aren't happening.
The only people who have video proof of violence are the people who have had seen violence being engaged in by Hillary supporters against Trump voters.
Yeah, but there is a video of a dude that got pulled out of his car and the shit kicked out of him because he's a Trump supporter. The mainstream media has been crushed. They have done everything in their power to stop this man, and none of it worked. He went all the way and won, despite everything they did. In fact, if they would have not covered him in the same way they did Gary Johnson or Jill Stein, they probably would not have, he wouldn't have succeeded. And if they weren't complicit in what happened to Bernie Sanders, then that would have also probably resulted in a different outcome. So this is proof that the mainstream media, people are sick of them. They're sick of hearing their bullshit. They have accepted that there is, in fact, a real liberal media presence. And it is all the media that's not right-wing media, which is a large percentage of it. They have also gotten sick of fucking celebrities telling them what to do and who to vote for, because they don't have, they're full of shit too, and they don't know what they're talking about. There was as an example, Joss Whedon put together a video where he had all the people who had acted in his films in one way or another recommend that people vote Hillary Clinton, and he did it in a humorous way, right? Nobody liked this video. It was fucking annoying, and it was like you felt like you were being talked down to, like you were a child that needed to be told how you should vote. It was clear propaganda. And regular people put a video together in the same format responding to that video, where they say, oh, all these famous actors have come out and they have told us who we should vote for. Thanks, famous actors. I never would have known there was an election this year. And they, just gave it right back to them. And at the end, they were just like, we don't need you. Thanks for nothing. This is a symbol. This means that people want new information. They're looking for stuff from somewhere else. They're tired of the mainstream. And this is good because, yes, like all of the other like alternative media sources like InfoWars and Steven Crowder and even the Young Turks, they're all changing they see this as an opportunity to make their platforms grow. And I think that's because a lot of people watch them. And I think that their numbers are growing. I think that could benefit us as well. and people who talk about the things that we talk about. It's not going to be massive because there is a sort of there's a hump to get over. It's the gynocentric hump, but I think that there are more people, that are looking into this. In fact, more women, I believe, more women voted for Trump than Clinton this year. It was like 45% women voted for Trump, and that's saying something considering the rape accusations and the misogyny and all these accusations. They were able to figure out that, at least from the women that voted for Trump, they were able to figure out without too much trouble that grabbing me by the pussy is indeed locker room talk, and that they accept that they have heard it before and have done it themselves, and they don't think it's a big deal. And they've also figured out that when he said only Rosie O'Donnell, he meant only Rosie O'Donnell. So that says something. I think that gives me hope, because I think that, we can break the narrative. We can actually have these conversations. I think that's a good thing. Fuck the mainstream media.
Finally, we have Zarna Joshi's Island 2, where a crazy woman tells us about the ways that women internalize their own oppression. Prepare your spines for the cringe. Also, who is that dude that sounds like me?
When I refuse to be silent, and I raise my voice, and I demand safety, it makes some women angry and afraid. A woman who dares to speak out in this culture of silence is a shock.
Women like you make us all look bad. You're making women unsafe.
You do!
Yeah?
You turned what was apparently a non-sexual joke about a man's size into a sexual joke. And you insisted it was sexual.
How dare you trivialize sexual harassment like this?
It's called internalized oppression. Instead of protecting
Okay,
yourself.
anytime a woman says that your accusation isn't legitimate, it doesn't pass the smell test, it's internalized oppression. This woman is arguing that anytime a woman makes an accusation, she has to be believed on face value. Mm-hmm. And it goes straight to conviction. That's what she wanted to see. She wanted police to come in, take Humongous away, and jail him.
And then jail themselves.
And anything less is oppression. And any woman who says, maybe there should be some checks and balances to this system, otherwise we are going to very rapidly deteriorate into a Mad Max state of complete chaos. Any woman who says that has internalized oppression. Not misogyny, oppression.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a man who's been in jail for too long, and then he can't, even if they have to let him go after 20 or 30 years, he has trouble reassimilating into society. And they call that they're institutionalized, like they're just unable to adapt. This is the same thing to her, I guess.
Man walks up to a woman, initiates a hostile conversation with her, she makes some vague reference, and then he runs after her, insisting that she turn that reference sexual. What the fuck does that look like, Zarna?
She's about to show the dreaded moment when she was sexually harassed. Now, I don't know who the hell made this for her, but they're obviously pretty good at making videos. She's found some professional video makers to put this together. And I could just imagine the director, who doesn't know anything about this, saying, okay, Zarna, so find me the clip where you actually got sexually harassed, and I'll put it up in slow motion. It'll look really... What? Okay, that's the clip, is it? That's the worst thing he did. Okay, we'll play it in super slow motion with some really scary music over it.
Yeah.
And I think it'll look like the violent crime you want it to. Ah!
Go for it.
Look at that face. Super predator.
I know. The guy's terrifying.
It looks like the face of a guy who just doesn't want to be there.
He looks like a cheetah.
He looks like the face of the guy who's just sort of edging towards the door.
Yeah.
He's like in the party. He's like, I gotta go feed the canary.
Yeah.
I gotta feed my whatever I have. I just I have something I gotta feed. Bye.
Okay, my fish.
The man who sexually harassed me, he was hostile.
I got you.
Sorry, Humongous.
I have you. You're mine.
I actually see
such hostility.
I just actually see
That was really good editing by the part of the camera people.
It's like they know. It's like everyone knows except her.
Sexual harassment is hostile. He escalated the situation when he repeated his sexually harassing words.
You asked him to. You literally fucking said, can you repeat that? Oh, well, whatever you said. It was...
Humongous what?
Humongous
what?
Humongous
what?
Many cops are ex-military. 8 out of every 10 women in the military experiences rape and/or sexual assault while serving.
All right, Zarna. Actually, if you look at the statistics, first of all, a military environment is 20% female, 80% male. The proportion of rapes is probably going to be proportionate to the number of rapists in the environment. That means statistically, if there are equal numbers of male and female rapists, there are going to be 4 times more rapists in the military. 4 times more male rapists than female rapists in the military. And yet, when you look at the statistics and you break it down based on the proportion, the likely proportion of rapists for men and women, women in the military are actually very rapey. And men in the military, a lot less rapey than their female compadres. And not just that, there's a surprising statistic in there as well. There's a lot of rape of military men by civilian women, or sexual assault of military men by civilian women, as reported by military men. And the reason why is because who the fuck is going to believe a male soldier was raped by a female civilian?
The truth is, the cops are twice as likely to commit domestic violence against their partners.
Bullshit. This is the fucking woozle of woozles. I actually spent ages tracking down where this came from, where this particular statistic came from. I found the goddamn article. It was, of course, behind a paywall. I actually took screenshots of the relevant details. This is complete bullshit. It is what it actually found is that there's twice the rate of domestic violence in families with a cop, with an employed cop. But it's not the cop doing the violence. It's his partner. And that was turned into into male cops being twice as likely to engage in domestic violence. It is so fucking dishonest, the use of this statistic.
Not only are women and people of color marginalized this way, but people with mental disabilities too.
So if you are crazy, legitimately crazy, we can't say you're crazy.
Because that'll be marginalized.
Because it marginalizes people.
And it would be patriarchy.
Yes.
Because only some kind of male malevolence actually diagnoses mental illness. I don't know.
It's called ableism. And by the way, crazy isn't a mental condition. It doesn't actually mean anything, except that someone is trying to silence you.
Then why did you just say what you said? You just said calling people crazy fucking is insensitive to the mentally ill, but it doesn't mean mentally ill. You just contradicted yourself in 10 fucking seconds, woman.
I'm trying to follow the logic. You got sexually harassed. A bunch of Indian men called you out on your bullshit. You said they're suffering from internalized oppression, which causes them to oppress you. And suddenly we're talking about these guys getting shot by the police.
Yep.
This is some seriously fucked up... We need some inertial dampers with these kind of hijinks.
All of this, like, humongous causes terrorism in Syria. It's like the butterfly effect. He says that, and then there's like this cascade of events. And suddenly there's a building that explodes in the Middle East. And it's Humongous's fault. Because of white supremacy. Somewhere there's like 2 white guys giving each other a high five as that's exploding in this like third world country. Yes.
Humongous did 9/11.
She's figured it out. Humongous did.
White men made him do it.
9/11 was a humongous job. We hope you enjoyed this clip show. If there was a clip from these shows you think we should have shown, please leave a comment on the video and include a timestamp. Thank you, and badger on.